Sometimes life can get real crazy and make you believe that you're losing your way. Whenever you feel like this, I want you to look in the mirror and say, I know that I can make it. I'm a child of God, no need to fake it. If my confidence begins to fade, I'll remind myself I'm fearfully made. He's got a plan for me, and that's a fact. So I'm gonna keep on pushing, ain't no turning back. Wait, pray, slay all day, put it on repeat and say, no weapon formed against me's gonna prosper, not today. Wait, pray, slay all day, put it on repeat and say, no weapon formed against me's gonna prosper, not today. You can never do enough for lazy, selfish, greedy, or entitled people. Even when you go out of your way and overextend yourself and you do everything you can, in many cases, it's still not enough when a person is selfish, greedy, lazy, or entitled. That's what we're talking about today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share if you find value here. Let's get this channel to 100,000. I know we can meet that goal by the end of this year. Before we get into today's topic, I want to tell you about the awesome mug that I am drinking out of, and it is the Boundaries mug. And it is a mug that goes through a checklist to make sure you're keeping your boundaries. If you have any of our inspirational mugs, hoodies, t-shirts, any of my books, which one do you have and how has it benefited you? Please let us know in the comments section. So, one of the things that you might find really frustrating, as so many of us do, is when you have went out of your way, when you've done a favor for someone, when you have done multiple favors, but because you're dealing with a person who's either greedy, lazy, selfish, entitled, or all of the above, it's never enough. It is never enough. If you give them your last $5, it's like, why didn't you promise me your next paycheck too? If you share half of your food, why didn't you give me all of your food and you not eat so I can only be the one eating? It's like no matter what you do, it is this sense of entitlement. And we're talking about grown adults, right? So, what do you do and what are some scriptures to kind of help you really begin to not feel like you have to go out of your way for somebody who's selfish, greedy, lazy, entitled? How to cut the umbilical cord, so to speak, right? So, what is entitlement? We throw that word around a lot, but what is a self-entitled person? So, a self-entitled person is a person who has the mindset that they deserve more than everybody else and they are entitled to other people's resources, whether that is the resource of your time, your money, your emotional energy, your support, favors, whatever it may be. They are of the mindset that everybody needs to be inconvenienced or should not mind being inconvenienced because of their poor planning, because they just didn't feel like doing what they were supposed to do. And you're supposed to pick up the lion's share. And I mean, it comes in so many forms, but the gist of it is a mindset that they are owed something simply because they exist in life. They're owed your money, they're owed your time, they're owed whatever it is they're asking of you, and you're just supposed to happily run yourself ragged, run yourself in the ground to keep a smile on their face. And one of the things that you will find with a person who is entitled, and I'm going to give you a couple of signs, is number one, they're self-absorbed. So people who are entitled are typically selfish, self-absorbed, self-centered, and their own motives, their own agenda, their own goals are what matter most, no matter who else gets hurt, no matter who else is inconvenienced, no matter who else is suffering, as long as they're able to meet their needs in their mind, that is all that matters. Two, they believe they're more important than everybody else, right? So self-entitled people have an exaggerated sense of self-importance in their own eyes. They're arrogant.
and they see themselves as better than everybody else. And so this could be the coworker who feels like they don't have to pull their weight, and you're just supposed to constantly do your work and their work. Now, mind you, you're getting a paycheck for your job alone. They're getting paid for their job alone, but they believe that you're supposed to do your work and their work, and they're constantly imposing on you to finish an assignment for them, to cover for them, to pick up a slack. And maybe you've done it once or twice, but now you see that it's become a habit. And you were like, I can't do your job and do my job well. And the thing is, we're both getting paid to do a job. You got to do yours. But they believe that they are more important than everybody else, which leads to number 3. They have a sense that they deserve special treatment over other people. So they're the only ones that deserve special treatment, and you're always supposed to make exceptions for them, even though they would not make an exception for you, because they think the world revolves around them and everyone else is just supposed to orbit around them. 4, they tend to come with a lot of drama. So if you know someone who is self-entitled, selfish, greedy, lazy, they tend to be in the middle of controversy and drama because of their ways, because of their behavior, because of the bridges that they have burned with other people due to their selfishness and arrogance. You will find that they're surrounded by drama. Sometimes they're surrounded by drama because they gossip about people and they tell the remix version of the story. They leave out all the messed up things that they did to the other person while only saying how the other person responded. So they're painting a narrative that the person who had a conflict with them is this mean, awful person, when in fact they're just exacerbated because the entitled person keeps taking advantage of them, keeps exploiting them, and they've had enough and they finally put their foot down. But the entitled person's not going to tell you that. They're just telling one side of the story. They seek constant validation. That's another thing. When you're dealing with a very entitled person, a lot of times it's stemming from insecurity, and they crave excessive admiration and praise, similar to a narcissist. And narcissists are entitled, so they go hand in hand. And the thing is, they are constantly seeking validation for things that are just normal things. So it could be something as simple as you were coughing and they gave you a cough drop. They offered you a cough drop. And that was a kind thing. Yes, it was. You said thank you. You were grateful. You were appreciative. They're never going to let you forget that 2 years ago when you were coughing because you had a cold, they gave you a cough drop. They're going to tell everybody that, mutually, yeah, I really support. And then they're going to exaggerate. I really had to support Cheryl because, Cheryl was almost dying and you were coughing, 2 coughs. They were like, Cheryl was almost dying and, I had to come to her medical aid. And you looking like, what is wrong with you? You gave me a cough drop. I said, thank you. So you find that they seek constant validation and they want excessive praise for just being a decent human being. And of course, we're grateful. Somebody does something kind. Somebody extends mercy. Somebody does something for you in your time of need. You say thankful. You say thank you. You're grateful, but you don't want it held over your head for the rest of your life like they gave you an organ. It's a cough drop. You didn't give me one of your lungs. They also think they're above the rules. So whatever the rules are, this can be at a job setting, whatever the rules are, they think that they're above the rules, but everybody else is supposed to play by the rules. And so when a person is self-entitled, they think the rules don't apply to them. So you got to watch for that, because no matter what you do, no matter how much you've come through for someone, you will find that when a person is selfish, greedy, entitled, or lazy, they think the rules don't apply to them. And last but not least, they tend to be argumentative. They tend to be argumentative because when a person is entitled, remember, they walk through the world wanting to have their way, even if it puts off other people, inconveniences other people, even if it's harmful to other people. As long as they're good in their eyes, they don't care about other people, because entitlement and selfishness and even greed go hand in hand because it's never enough. So they will argue with you. So you will find when you're dealing with an entitled person and you say no, or you set a boundary, you will find that they will argue with you about your no. Well, why can't you pay for dinner? And you're like, because I paid for dinner last time and we are both able-bodied grown adults and you invited me out, so we can go Dutch. You pay for yours, I'll pay for mine. You know, we're friends, but it's not my job to carry you when we're both able-bodied adults. You are not my minor child who I am legally and financially responsible for. I am not your guardian. You are not my parent who I am choosing to make sure that they are good. And that's still a personal choice, right? But when you're dealing with someone who has the entitled mindset, they will argue you down the rabbit hole of no because you have set a boundary. You said no. Maybe you're at a restaurant and as soon as the waiter comes, you ask, would you mind doing separate checks? Because you know how they get down. Every time you'll go out, they try to play it off like they forget their wallet, but they don't forget to eat. Why people who forget their wallet chronically? I'm talking about the chronic person who does this. And you go to brunch. Let's say you go to brunch once a month. We'll give it that day. Once a month. First Saturday of the month, you have a girls' day. You go to brunch. Maybe you're a guy and you're going out for burgers. And you got this one friend and everybody's working. Everybody's able-bodied, right? So we're not talking about someone where, there's an issue that is preventing that. And you have picked up the tab over and over and over again. And you notice that I've been picking up the tab for the past 3 months, for the past 6 months. I got bills too, like everybody else. I got to keep the lights on like everybody else. Why you don't forget to eat? Why you don't forget to come to eat? And you be the one inviting me because I pay. You're a user. So they will argue with you. I'm using that one example, but it can be anything. It can be that they borrow your car, and the last 2 times they borrowed your car, they brought it back extremely dirty, smelling like weed, or no gas. And you are like, I'm not lending you my car no more. No. Or maybe you just don't lend your car at all, and that's your personal choice. That is your right. It is your car. And so they will argue you down the rabbit hole. Well, I don't understand why, because I need to do X, Y, and Z. And you're thinking you are grown like me. What does what you need to do got to do with me? I need to do things also. I got errands I got to run. I got priorities I have to handle. I have responsibilities that I have to take care of. I have people that I am responsible for. You are not the only person on the planet, and newsflash, the world does not revolve around you. And my world most certainly doesn't revolve around you. Get a clue, get a life. I don't know what you need to get, but get something. And you will find that they will drive you nuts. If you've ever dealt with a person who is entitled to the 10th power, put a 10, and you are just tired of the entitlement. And last but not least, I know I said the other one was last, but this just came to me. Entitled people tend to be horrible listeners. You ever had a friend or a family member who can go on and on and on and on about themselves, but you can't get a word in edgewise? They'll call you and say, hey, I just called to see how you doing. And you have enough experience with them to know that that's really not how the conversation is going to go. And before you could even say, oh, well, let me tell you what's going on with me, because they just said they called to see how you're doing. So you're about to tell them something that, you're going through, or something you're excited about, or just how you've been lately. You can't even finish the sentence. Oh, that's good. Well, let me tell you what's going on with me. And you're like, huh? And you look at the time and you're like, dang, a whole 45 minutes have passed by. This is a long time. And they don't even take a breath. They're horrible listeners. And so people who are entitled expect people to listen to them, but they're terrible listeners. And then what'll happen is when you try to get in a word edgewise, they'll keep cutting you off, or they will cut the conversation short, or they will act completely disinterested. But they want you to be lively, engaged, and excessively interested and ask questions. They want you to be all in the conversation when they're talking about themselves. But when you want to take 5 of the 45 minutes that you've been on the phone to share a little something about yourself, all of a sudden they're not interested. They're horrible listeners. So know that even when you spend 45 minutes on the phone, well, you know what? If you was a real friend, you would have spent 4 hours on the phone. And you're like, huh? What planet are you from? I can't take it. So it's never enough. We spent 40 minutes. We didn't even spend we spent 45 minutes talking about you. Because every time I tried to say anything, you cut me off. And I'm not a good friend because I won't stay on the phone an extra 2 hours, an additional 2 hours. Oh, honey. So do know that when you are dealing with an entitled person, it's never enough. Maybe they were sick. They had to go to the hospital. You were a good friend. You visited them. You brought them some flowers, or you brought them maybe a coloring book with some crayons. You brought them things to do, activities, or you just came. You just went to the hospital, whether you brought something or not. You came, you prayed with them, you kept them company, you talked with them. And then they tell everybody that you're a horrible friend because you hardly came to the hospital. And let's say they were in the hospital for a week. You came 3 days out of the week. You came 5 days out of the week. However many days you came. Maybe you came 1 day out of the week because your work schedule just doesn't allow that. You have other responsibilities, but you came. You called them daily to check in on them. And it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough. Now, mind you, you was in the hospital. And when you called them to tell them you was in the hospital, they were like, "Dag, that's messed up. Listen, let me call you back." And it's crickets. And you like the math ain't mathing in this relationship. The math ain't mathing in this relationship. Something is not adding up. So do know that it's never enough. So what am I getting at? Don't beat yourself up. Don't run yourself ragged for a person who is entitled, selfish, lazy, greedy. Don't run yourself in the ground doing the most, and stop being the go-to person for somebody you can never go to. Stop being the go-to person for somebody you could never go to. Again, we're not talking about your minor children. You're responsible for them legally. We're not talking about if you are the caregiver for a parent. We're not talking about those situations where you have made some clear decisions. So with that said, how do you deal with a person who is entitled? And I'm going to give you one little quick thing that you can do. And in our wellness club, we're going to go into detail. We'll go into detail about this and really dive deep in terms of some strategies. But I'll give you one thing that you can do. And so the major thing is to set boundaries. When you set boundaries, and this is the biggest thing that I believe people don't get about boundaries, it's really not about the other person. It is about you. Boundaries are for you, for you, for you. When you have a door and walls, let's say you live in an apartment and you have a door and walls, those walls and that door is for you, so that your space, your apartment, the boundaries of where you live are clearly indicated by the walls and the door, right? So the boundary is for you. So when you're dealing with an entitled person, you got to set boundaries, whether it's boundaries around your money, your time, your emotional energy, whatever the specifics are and the dynamics of that relationship. And boundaries don't always mean a lengthy conversation. Sometimes boundaries are a shift in your behavior. Sometimes not a word needs to be said, but your actions change. And that's how you set boundaries. And it doesn't matter how they feel about it. Entitled people don't like boundaries. Entitled people don't like boundaries. They're going to have a problem with your boundaries. It doesn't matter. And this is where you're going to have to toughen up your so what game. You're going to have to develop a thick skin. So they may be upset and say, "You're a horrible friend." Don't be manipulated. All right, if that's how you want to see the friendship, so be it. Make the word "so be it" your friend. I love the phrase "so be it." So be it. Especially if you know you've been good to them And that is a manipulative ploy so that they can continue to exploit you, drain you, use you, and drain you dry. Oh, no, 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 sirree, Bob. So be it. Well, you so cheap and selfish, and you looking like, huh? I done paid for the last 3 brunches, and I'm selfish? I'm selfish? How you forgot your wallet 3 times in a row? And you invited me to brunch. You invited me to brunch and ate good. And not only did you eat the brunch, but you ordered a second meal to go on my dime. Let's just really, make this a thing. But yet they're calling you selfish. You know you haven't been selfish. So if you can honestly say, you know the dynamics, I don't know you, I don't know your friends or your family member. So if you know that you have been good to this person, but they're choosing to project their negative traits on you to manipulate you into backpedaling against your boundaries are for you. So if they're like, well, you're just so selfish and cheap and that's what everybody says, don't even argue. Don't even argue. You're just so selfish and cheap and that's what everybody says about you. Okay. So be it. Don't say another word. Just let them sit with it. So don't be afraid to stand by your boundaries when you're dealing with an entitled person. And entitled people tend to be manipulative. So you may find that they stop talking to you. Even if they don't say they're not talking to you, you know the dynamics of your relationship. So you may call them a day or two after and they're like, and they're barely talking to you. So you know what it is. Don't kiss their behind, don't chase them. If they want to behave immature, that is on them. You are not the disrespect whisperer. You are not their etiquette coach. And you are not put on earth to bend yourself into a pretzel to bend to someone else's will. And so at some point, we got to get out of people pleasing. And we want to be God pleasers. So with that said, let me give you the scripture. Because this will help cement what we're talking about. So Proverbs 13 and 4 13 verse 4 says, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. So when you're dealing with a person who's selfish, who's lazy, the reason they're not getting what they want to get out of life is because they have a sluggard mentality. They have a sluggard way of walking through the world, believing that they're just owed other people's resources, that the sea is supposed to part for them personally. So you got to be mindful. Proverbs 26:16. Let me give you this one. It says, the sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. So when you're dealing with someone who is entitled, because there's a sluggish aspect to entitled. When you're dealing with someone who's entitled, who's lazy, who's greedy, who's selfish, you will find that 7 people can tell them about themselves and they will argue and say all 7 people are wrong. So 7 people could have the same experience that you had with them, that they're always picking up the tab, if that's what it is. They borrow 7 other people's car and leave the car a hot mess. They gossip about all their friends behind their back, but then smile in their face. Whatever the behavior is, when other people call them out on it and bring it to their attention, right? They're answering sensibly. This is a sensible conversation. But the sluggard doesn't want to hear that because they're wise in their own eyes. They're wiser than everybody else around them who has experienced their entitlement in their own eyes. They're not wise, meaning in their own eyes. It's arrogance, it's ignorance on display. So you got to know that. This is why it's hard to get through to somebody who's entitled. And you can reason with them all day, every day. And you will hear me say that setting boundaries is better than trying to reason with a fool. Setting boundaries is better than trying to reason with a fool. And when you set boundaries, you do not waver no matter how much they don't like it. They have to just handle it. And if they choose not to speak to you, if they choose to stop being your friend, they choose, whatever they choose to do, that's on them. You can't control another human being. Leviticus 25:17, last scripture. It says, do not take advantage of each other. But fear your God, I am the Lord your God. So the scripture's saying we're not supposed to take advantage of each other. When you're dealing with a person who's entitled, they walk through the world lazy, selfish, greedy, entitled. They take advantage of friends, family. They take advantage of their romantic partner. And the scripture says, do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God, meaning respect God. When you respect God, when you respect the word of God, you're going to go through life with a level of courtesy, a level of treating people the way you want to be treated. So it's your life. You can most certainly allow lazy, selfish, entitled, and greedy people to run you in the ground. That choice is available for those who want to argue and debate. Let them run you in the ground. It's your life. That's what you want. But for those who know that you don't want that for yourself, know that you don't owe an entitled person your last breath. You don't owe an entitled person every bit of your energy to where you have nothing left to give. Because the bottom and top line is, when you have nothing left for yourself, that entitled person ain't coming to help you, because they walk through the world lazy, greedy, selfish, and entitled until they choose to make a change. So with that being said, are you a member of the Wednesday Wellness Club? If you're not, you're missing out. The Wednesday Wellness Club is a therapeutic group. It's part therapeutic group, part coaching group. We meet twice a month by telephone conference call, and we focus on mental self-care, emotional well-being, mental fitness, and success through a biblical lens. So, to become a member of the Wednesday Wellness Club, it is one of the tiers of the Cassandra Mack YouTube channel. You will see a join button. If you don't see the join button on the video, you'll see a link in the video description box to join. When you click on the link, you're going to see that there are 4 tiers of membership. If you want to access the Wednesday Wellness Club, make sure to join at the Wellness Club tier. We also have the Winner's Circle tier, where we really dive into high-level concepts for personal growth, personal development, and accelerating your success. So I want to make sure that you know about that. We also have an event coming up for women on Saturday, October 12th, 2024. It's happening in New York City. It's in person, and it is the Fix Your Crown Sis event. It's going to be an awesome day of women coming together, positive, like-minded women, to lift one another up, to be poured into. You'll see the link in the video description box. The link will take you to the Eventbrite page, where you can find out more information about the event, including ticket information and hotels for those who are coming from other parts of the world, other parts of the country, other parts of the world. You'll see that there are hotels. There's information about what to do in New York if you're making a weekend of it and you want to have a taste of New York. There's information about that in the FAQ section once you get to the Eventbrite page. So I want to make sure you know about that as well. And we have a new book in our Simple Prayers series. This is a book for your finances. It's simple prayers for financial wisdom, financial overflow, and financial abundance. And these are scriptural based prayers to pray in the direction of your finances. The Bible has a lot to say about our finances, about abundance, about provision. And so this is one of the books in our Simple Prayer series for those who are interested. And last but not least, the Speaking Life into Your I Am book is now available as an audio book. So if you're a person who prefers listening to books while you're on the go, it is now available as an audio book. So with that being said, have an awesome day. Take care of yourselves and each other. And let's do our best to be kind to one another. Take care. No matter who you are,
you will have haters. John 15 verse 18 says, if the world hates you, know that it hated Jesus first. So if you have haters, know that God is greater than your haters. Lately you've been feeling the weight of your haters coming at you with their envy and their hate, scheming against you, throwing mud on your name. But God's gonna work it out despite their lies and game. God is greater, so much greater than your haters. God is greater, don't give up